Hello and welcome back. My name is Jack B, and as always, thank you for viewing my video. I started researching Cyclospora for this video, but as I progressed my research, I felt as though we, the American people, are more at risk for diseases, viruses, and parasites today than ever before. We are under a storm called an RFK NATO, or just RFK Jr. The confluence that spins this tempest is his inability to make rational decisions, his ineptness, his being lost in reverie in his muddled mind. RFK Jr. worked as an environmental lawyer focused on clean water and is a well-known conspiracy theorist. He is now the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, and he leads the federal department responsible for national public health and medical services. And as usual, and demonstrated, an organization is a reflection of its leader and leadership team. Cyclospora tracking is no longer mandatory under the CDC's active surveillance system. Under RFK Jr.'s leadership, it was removed from mandatory tracking on July 1, 2025, along with 5 other pathogens that were previously monitored. Currently, there are only 2 pathogens left that the CDC mandates tracking: Salmonella and E. coli. Since mandatory tracking is not required for this parasite, Cyclospora, the exact number of cases across the U.S. is hard to define. Not to mention the fact that if each case were reported in real time, then a map of the outbreak locations could have been created to assist in determining the source. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention acknowledge that there are over 6,707 laboratory confirmed cases and about 11,500 unconfirmed or suspected cases across 45 states in an ongoing multi-state outbreak. That is more than 18,000 total cases in the U.S., and all we get are shoulder shrugs from the leaders of the CDC. The outbreak, which began in May, has resulted in 423 hospitalizations. This makes it the largest outbreak of this parasite on record in the United States. The CDC still does not have confirmation through product testing for the location of the source or distribution of the parasite. They had a positive test, then they didn't. The CDC thinks the source is Mexico. For your information, rumors and speculation are floating about the suspected lettuce supplier being a heavy donor to the administration, but no one knows for sure. There are several other notable active outbreaks and circulating illnesses that have come to light and are now being monitored in the U.S. These include Legionnaire's disease, elevated parainfluenza, Mpox, dengue fever, COVID-19, foodborne diseases and bacteria, measles, and the previously mentioned cyclosporiasis. Parainfluenza virus, RSV, rhinovirus, and enterovirus, the common cold, are elevated nationally. It is a respiratory virus causing cold-like symptoms, bronchitis, or pneumonia. Mpox, formerly monkeypox. Clade 1 and Clade 2 cases are currently circulating at low levels nationwide, although surveillance data shows hundreds of cases confirmed across the U.S. this year. Dengue fever is also appearing throughout the U.S. COVID-19 shows early signs of minor increases. The CDC notes that the most notable increases are centered in the South and West, with Florida, Texas, California, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Nevada leading the current upward trend. Foodborne illnesses are ongoing, and they include strains such as Salmonella and E. coli. Lettuce was previously mentioned. Blueberries carry E. coli O145. Soft ricotta contains Listeria monocytogenes contamination. Powdered infant formula is suspected to contain Clostridium botulinum risks. Raw dairy and supplement powders are linked to separate E. coli O157, H7, and Salmonella outbreaks. As of July 23, 2026, the CDC reported 2,318 confirmed measles cases in 45 states plus Washington, D.C. There are 35 outbreaks across the United States for 2026. This already surpasses the total number of 2,289 cases recorded for the entirety of 2025. This is the highest number of measles cases since 1991. RFK Jr. sets a new 35-year record. About 93% of the infected individuals are unvaccinated. Only about 4% of cases occur in individuals who have received 2 doses of the MMR vaccine. The U.S. regularly tests wastewater to detect and measure the community-level spread of pathogens, antimicrobial resistant genes, and chemical exposure before clinical symptoms appear. Testing targets are generally divided into the following categories. 1. Respiratory viruses such as COVID-19, influenza A and B, respiratory syncytial virus, and avian influenza H5N1, 2. Gastrointestinal viruses such as norovirus, rotavirus, and poliovirus. 3. Other emerging pathogens such as mpox, formerly monkeypox, and measles. 4. Antibiotic resistance such as traces of antimicrobial resistant genes. 5. Chemicals and pharmaceuticals of illicit drugs such as fentanyl and methamphetamine, prescription medications, and environmental chemicals. During environmental wastewater testing, genomic bycatch occurs. Genomic bycatch, environmental DNA, eDNA, refers to the unintended collection of human DNA. Humans constantly shed skin, hair, and bodily waste. These samples are loaded with human genetic data. Analysis of this inadvertently captured human DNA reveals highly specific information across several key areas. 1. eDNA maps the health of entire populations. It tracks the spread of infectious diseases and monitors markers like cancer driving somatic mutations. 2. Human bycatch can be used to trace the origin of illegal human effluent and identify human remains in aquatic environment. 3. By mapping concentrations of human eDNA, authorities can locate leaking septic systems, illegal dumping, or untreated wastewater discharging into natural aquifers. The percentage of unvaccinated individuals with measles is high. In the U.S., there are basically two groups of vaccine skeptics. The first, hardcore anti-vaccine individuals, represent a small core, approximately 7% of adults. The second and the largest is the vaccine hesitancy group. The vaccine hesitant group includes parents concerned about rapid developmental timelines. This group also includes Black and Hispanic communities facing historical medical injustices and a mistrust of the healthcare system. Unlike ideologically driven anti-vaxxers, 7%ers, hesitant groups are often open to dialogue when engaged by trusted community or religious leaders. Sociologists and epidemiological groups find statistical data reveals distinct political, age, and socioeconomic patterns. According to comprehensive public health tracking and demographic studies by groups like the Kaiser Family Foundation, KFF, and the U.S. Census Bureau, the core profile of vaccine-resistant Americans centers heavily around political ideology, institutional trust, and specific media consumption. Data and political polling show that the modern anti-vaccine movement in the U.S. is heavily concentrated among conservatives, right-wing populists, and libertarians, rather than the socialist left. The Republican Party has seen a significant rise in vaccine skepticism and opposition to vaccine mandates. This divide is largely rooted in debates over personal freedom, parental rights, and skepticism of government health agencies. Republicans display significantly higher levels of anti-vaccine sentiment and vaccine hesitancy compared to Democrats. During the pandemic, public health measures, mask wearing, and vaccines became deeply politicized issues in the United States. The strongest statistical predictor of anti-vaccine sentiment in the U.S. is political leaning. Hardcore vaccine refusal is overwhelmingly concentrated among Republicans and Republican-leaning independents. Strong adherence to Christian nationalist ideology is one of the strongest cultural predictors of anti-vaccine attitudes and deep distrust in medical institutions. The core group, 7%ers, is primarily motivated by a belief in personal liberty and bodily autonomy. They view government mandates, public health overreach, and school requirements as explicit violations of their freedom. Studies indicate a regular reliance on far-right or alternative media outlets heavily correlates with the rejection of vaccine safety consensus. Further demographics: age and socioeconomic profile. Unvaccinated adults are typically younger. Roughly 75% of adults are under the age of 50. The highest concentration is found in the 18 to 29 age brackets. Younger adults rely heavily on decentralized social media platforms for information. Unvaccinated populations disproportionately feature lower household incomes, lack health insurance, and possess lower levels of educational attainment. Strong anti-vaccine sentiment is highest in the rural South, Great Plains, and Mountain West, while the lowest anti-vax sentiment is in the Northeast and West Coast. Psychological traits. The psychological profile of an anti-vaccine advocate often stems from specific beliefs rather than from a lack of information. They have an institutional distrust of government bodies such as the CDC and FDA, mainstream scientific or medical authorities, and multinational pharmaceutical companies such as Big Pharma. They believe in conspiracy theories, pseudoscientific beliefs, and strong populist worldviews, such as widely debunked myths connecting childhood vaccines to autism, government tracking, or theories about hidden vaccine ingredients. They are anti-authoritarian. This is a psychological trait where an individual experiences an intense emotional resistance to being told what to do, causing them to choose the exact opposite behavior to reassert control. Anti-vaccine advocates distinguish between traditional vaccines and mRNA vaccines. They believe both are dangerous to humans, but for different reasons. The reasons they reject traditional vaccines, cultures in weakened viruses, include the use of human fetal cell lines or animal tissues raises ethical or religious objections. The use of whole, weakened, or killed viruses, along with chemical additives and adjuvants such as aluminum, are toxic and cause severe chronic illness. The injected virus could revert to a dangerous form and contaminate others. The reasons they reject mRNA vaccines, genetic instructions, include a false belief that synthetic genetic material alters human DNA or turns people into genetically modified organisms. Because mRNA is new and was mass deployed, they label it experimental gene therapy and claim long-term safety tracking is missing. In summary, I believe people have the right to choose, but I also believe that one person should not be allowed to put the health and safety of another person in jeopardy. It is interesting, in the U.S., when people speak about personal freedom and rights, they think in terms of absolute and 100%. Total, absolute, personal freedom does not exist in any society. Absolute personal freedom does not exist because laws, regulations, and social responsibilities limit individual actions to protect public safety, order, and the rights of others. 100% exists only as a mathematical concept of a whole. In psychology, an obsessive demand for absolute certainty, such as needing to be 100% sure, is recognized as a cognitive distortion or a core symptom of obsessive-compulsive disorder. There has never been a human that has created or made anything that is 100% effective. There are always unintended consequences. While all humans have the same DNA, their genes may be flawed and react differently to vaccines. This is not unlike allergies. Efficacy is the ability or power of something, such as medicine, to produce a desired result or intended outcome. Routine childhood vaccines exceed 90 to 95% efficacy against diseases such as measles and polio. Next-generation mRNA vaccines have demonstrated 94 to 95% efficacy against symptomatic strains in tightly controlled initial trials. Finally, maybe everyone is simply put into two categories: those who focus on the 90 to 95% possibility of success, and those who focus on the 5 to 10% chance of failure. Well, these are my thoughts for today. And again, whether you agree or disagree, please verify the information presented. Thank you, and until next time, take care and be safe.
Me na do it.
Ooh.